Odyssey and comfort. You'll both be hollow before you come.
Crystal magic is an amazing magic to use for a conjurer build, as you can see. It actually buffs the damage your weapons do and makes every fourth hit do an extra 35% damage. Crystal magic is so good as it just increases your raw damage output, letting you hit extremely hard, especially with fully charged bronze musket ease. Let's get into the damage numbers. For comparison's sake, here are the damage numbers of the crystal magic itself. A 100% blast and explosion size crystal blast does 249 damage. A fully charged 100% blast and explosion size crystal blast does 332 damage. A 20% blast and explosion size crystal blast does 309 damage. A fully charged 20% blast and explosion size crystal blast does 412 damage. So these damage numbers are already extremely high. Now let's move on to the damage numbers of the weapons with the crystal imbuement. A musket M1 does 284 damage. A crystal imbued musket M1 does 279 damage. This is because crystal has a 0.975 multiplier to the weapon damage, so the damage should theoretically be slightly less than if you just used weapons without the crystal imbuement. However, this only happens when you don't apply bleed with your weapons, which is very rarely. A crystal imbued musket M1 actually does 307 damage. So what is going on? Crystal deals an extra 10% damage to bleeding opponents and removes the bleed effect from them. Weapons have a very high chance to apply bleed, and when your weapons are imbued with crystal, they pretty much always apply bleed. The weapon applies bleed, and then the crystal imbuement immediately reacts with the bleed, removing the bleed and doing an extra 10% crystal damage. As there is no cooldown to this reaction, this will happen on every attack, and as a result, you will be doing much more damage on each attack than if you wasn't using the crystal imbuement. On top of that, crystal does an extra 35% damage on every 4th hit, meaning while fighting, some of your attacks will do an even higher amount of damage. This extra 35% damage on every 4th hit will always apply, even on rapid fire or multi-shot attacks, like the Silent Blade's E, or the Flintlock Q. You can tell when an attack did the extra 35% damage, as you hear a crystal shatter sound. Now that you know that, let's move on to the rest of the damage numbers. Even though an uncharged musket E does the same damage as a musket M1, I will still show you the damage numbers. A musket E does 284 damage. A crystal imbued musket E does 307 damage. Sometimes because of lag, your musket E will charge just a tiny bit, even if you tap it, and you'll see a slightly higher damage number than this, like 309. A fully charged musket E does 379 damage. A fully charged crystal imbued musket E does 410 damage. Now moving on to the Kai Saber. A Kai Saber M1 does 93 damage. A crystal imbued Kai Saber M1 does 101 damage. A Kai Saber E does 243 damage. A crystal imbued Kai Saber E does 264 damage. A fully charged Kai Saber E does 324 damage. A fully charged crystal imbued Kai Saber E does 352 damage. From all of those damage numbers, you can clearly see that crystal imbuement makes you do much more raw damage, and because of that, I won't need to showcase any other weapons, as you now know it will make the damage higher. Crystal magic is already an S tier magic, but it shines more so with a Conjurer build. Here are all the damage numbers. Pause if you want to take a screenshot or read over it again. If you want to know what the damage would be if the attack was the 4th crystallize attack, just take the damage number and multiply it by 1.35 and round it to the nearest integer.